People say take your teenage years to make mistakes. It's not a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like you can always make another video. Comfort in the moment and instant gratification just ruins people's potential. People don't watch videos because they actually care about how long you rode. If you can admit you're wrong, I mean you're going in the right direction. I think teaching myself discipline has been the most valuable thing I've done. Very few people in life will really reach their true potential. If I hadn't been watching Hamza consistently, I almost certainly wouldn't be in the position I am now, looking forward to my results. The price for success is a lot less than the bill for regret.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Extrospective podcast with your host, Zach Villeneuve-Snell. Today I'm joined by Giacomo, and we're going to kick straight off with asking him how we came across each other, where he first found out about me, and why he thinks he's on the podcast.
I guess we first came across each other on Instagram. Am I right in saying that? And YouTube as well, given that we've both done cycling vlogs. I mean, I don't know if are you continuing with them?
Not currently, but yeah, potentially in the future. I'm not going to rule it out.
Yeah. Okay. Good answer. And so one day we decided to meet up for a ride in Richmond Park when you. Quite a bit of a long one for you, but I think I'm here today to discuss the philosophy behind some of the stuff that I'm doing.
The obvious question for anyone listening or watching who hasn't come across you and doesn't know anything about you is, who are you? How would you describe yourself?
So, I'm a student going to my first year of A-levels very shortly. I also make YouTube videos around cycling vlogs, and recently a bit of bikepacking, which has been a lot of fun. I think I'm quite a motivated person, so if there's something which I'm enjoying, I'll spend quite a lot of time doing it. And recently this year I've tried to develop some more discipline. As GCSEs cross with wanting to become more fit, I sort of got into the realms of self-improvement, and I've been doing that for just over 3 months now. I'm really wanting to get back into some bike racing, give that a proper go before sort of cross it off my list and neglect it. But I think one quote I saw which is sort of related to that is, the price for success is a lot less than the bill for regret. So I thought I may as well just give it a go whilst I've still got the opportunity to get into some racing. I don't have a full-time job to work around, and I've still got a bit more freedom at my age, and I don't want to have any regrets and just throw myself in, really. So.
Absolutely. I mean, time is certainly on your side. Are you currently 16 or are you 17 yet?
16. Yeah.
You are 16. So. Right. Okay. So that's a big future ahead of you if you want to go down the pathway of racing. And it's obviously quite interesting. There's a common theme so far in the podcast, quite naturally, because of the circle that I find myself in from doing a lot of kind of bike racing and content creation. But the question I've been asking, and I'll pose the same question to you, is how did you kind of come across sport, and what were your earliest memories of sport, and what does that look like?
Maybe since the age of 8 or 9, I used to play every Sunday at Wasps in London, just rugby club sign-up job, and I did that for years and years. I guess that was the first proper commitment I had, and every Sunday, whether it was chucking down or not, I'd be playing rugby. That was a lot of good fun. I'd say around early 2018, March the 24th, 2018, when I got my first road bike. Ever since then, I would say that's the main sport which I associate myself with, and yeah. But that doesn't mean I'm ruling other things out. Like I love a range of sports. I like running, love football as well. So,
why do you think you found cycling in particular?
My dad used to do some sportives, and I was always really intrigued to that. And then one day, I did a sportive, and I absolutely loved it, even though it's a lot of the enjoyment is sort of the pain and the reward of pain afterwards. But I was hooked since then, really. So.
It's always funny hearing this, because there's a lot of people who obviously aren't into cycling themselves. They hear the stories of us, especially when I was back in school and sixth form as well. And you say, oh, what have you been up to at the weekend? And just destroying my body for 5 hours up and down hills on the weekend. It's like, it's not many people's idea of fun, but I suppose once you get hooked, and is it like the delayed reward that you get from it it's quite satisfying?
Yeah, delayed gratification is very much something which is present within cycling, and I think, not to say it's the most difficult sport, but I think it's up there in terms of mentality and if you look throughout the day, the daily routine of a pro cyclist, almost everything they do will have some sort of contributing factor, like the amount of sleep they're getting, breakfast, training, recovery. That takes up a lot of time, even if it's just training for a couple of hours a day. I think from an outside perspective, you don't see how much commits just to the cycling.
So obviously, as you mentioned earlier, we know each other kind of through content creation and through YouTube. YouTube was something I dabbled in when I was much younger, making gaming videos. But can you tell me a little bit about how you started off on there? So how did you find your way into making YouTube videos?
Yeah, so it must have been before I went into year 9. I started doing some compilations just because that's what people did at the time. It's still currently as well. The compilations are one of those things which it gets a ton of views. It really does. And I love the video creation aspect, and moving to the vlog side of it, it's sort of slightly, I don't want to say disappointing, but I am, given that I think there are less people interested in the sort of the cool, like the real vlogging aspect, but those who are more committed to it. I've landed on vlogs. I quite like that because there's a lot of room for creativity. You can just do a day and film yourself, but with the top vloggers out there, in terms of success, let's say in terms of views and audience, if you look at someone like Logan Paul, you might just think, oh, just some random kid from Ohio who got lucky. But if you really see the amount of effort that goes into the videos behind the scenes, his editor Hayden Hillier Smith, I think it is. Oh, the amount of work and the amount of precision into the editing and telling a story is really an art form. And whilst it can, I think, be perceived as quite pretentious, especially at the upper end, the sort of your Logan Pauls, Jake Pauls, there is a lot of skill and a lot of thought which goes behind that. So.
Now, is that something that you learned quite quickly and you've learned about yourself in terms of having to develop those skills?
I think it's only come in the last few months when I decided I was going to go bikepacking. I thought I've got to make something out of this, and you can really see when you get the results back in terms of audience retention. You can really see what works, and if you put the effort to results, it really is there in terms of if you put more effort in, if you really try and understand the idea of storytelling through video, you'll see the results.
Do you think it's because the perception of YouTube or the perception of content creation in general is often naive to the hours and the skill that takes to make videos, because it's certainly a steep learning curve when you first install, for example, DaVinci Resolve, which is what I think you and I both use to make videos. I use DaVinci to edit these podcasts actually, and it's taken me so long to get to the current stage of knowing what to do, how to do it, and executing it quickly enough that it doesn't take me 6 hours to edit one of these podcasts. And I look at the videos that, like you mentioned, like Logan Paul, not that I watch him, but you look at some of the edits at that level, and I have such a greater appreciation for what goes into, so maybe like a 3 or 4 minute YouTube video. And just video production and the creativity and the storytelling, there's far more depth to it than just picking up a camera and talking to it and cutting them clips together, isn't there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially when I first got into YouTube, you really do start to think about all that. And I think ever since then, I've had a much bigger appreciation as well for, stuff I watch on TV and the production in that sense. For example, now I'm watching La Casa de Papel, Money Heist on Netflix. People take it for granted because the standard in the film industry is so high, but every shot, every second really contributes to the way to the story really, and engaging the viewer. So.
I'm really interested to hear about the personality you think you had that was kind of the perfect storm for you to really want to pursue content creation. Like, what do you think it was about you that made you want to explore that creative side of you? Because again, it's one in every 50 people, one in every 100 people at school that goes on to make a YouTube channel.
I've always had a sort of creative aspect, a creative side of my personality. I think I like music. I like drawing. So maybe a bit of that came into play there. But I think with YouTube, you do really put yourself out there for the world to see potentially. So I love people basically. I love talking to people, and a lot of people are quite reserved and sort of anxious to think of what others might think of them. But I have to say, I just really like talking to people, hearing their point of view, hearing their stories, and it's quite a cliche, it's quite a cliche thing to say. But of course, I like views. I don't think anyone doesn't like views and numbers like that. But what I really like is sort of engaged comments, I have to say, and just hearing what people's responses, and if that goes, it sparks something in their mind to tell one of their stories from, I don't know, maybe their childhood cycling or something. I just find it really interesting to read through what people have to say and people truly engaging with what you have to put out there. I think you have to make it relevant for the viewer. You can choose your own style. You can have your own style and have your niche within YouTube, within what you're doing. But there's got to be some way to hook an audience or create an audience to it. Like there are a couple of things within it. There's the video itself, and then there's the title thumbnail combination, and then also importantly how that relates to the video. So you may have a really good click-through rate because of your title and thumbnail, but if the video is completely different, if it's maybe clickbaity, but if it's sort of not relevant, then it will just be clicked off quickly. And another thing is with the thumbnail, if you give an extra teaser, then people are more inclined to click through rather than just repeating the title. Yeah, and then other maybe more broad lessons. I think it's really important if there's anyone who's doubting whether they should do YouTube or not. I know everyone will say just do it. But it's not a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like you can always make another video. If you know you're going to learn by making the first one, do it. You know, it's sort of that simple. If you've got something which you're passionate about, which you want to share, get your phone, prop it up against something which won't fall over, speak for a couple of minutes, upload it, and YouTube does like to promote new channels, especially the shorts function. So I think if you have anything to say, and if you can title it well, you will get a few views and you will have something to build on quite quickly.
What do you think you've learned about yourself in the process?
I think I've changed a lot since I started, but then some things have remained the same. But if I had to, I would say always go the extra mile to make it like pleasant for the viewer, and always go the extra mile to make it a bit more professional. Like, for example, with me, if I've got my drone with me, just do another shot, make it a little bit better. And I know they're not practical tips, but I think this is sort of one which is quite relevant. It's just make every second count towards telling a story, because people don't watch videos because they actually care about how long you rode. But if you make them care about how long you've ridden, then there's something quite weird about it, because people ask me, they try to understand in an open way. They say, why would someone watch that? Like, what's the intrigue to watching someone top about on his bike for a few hours on a weekend? And I think it's just building a sort of storyline from video to video, and having a challenge or not climax, a problem to solve within the video. It doesn't have to be a typical traditional problem, but something which the viewer might feel relieved of at the end when the video's finished or something like that. So
I think that's really interesting because we hear about how to tell stories, sort of maybe in English in school, and setting up the character, and then there's a fall, and then there has to be some kind of journey back to the hero's journey back to success again. But like you say, it's exactly the same. That journey can be extracted from pretty much every film. Every well-told story has those elements, and I think even something just as mundane as a daily vlog, if you embed that story into it, then someone's going to be way more captivated than just clip, 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 clip. I think it speaks to our need and our curiosity for heroes overcoming adversity. Obviously, quite a grand scale, but watching one of your videos, I've definitely noticed more recently as well the storytelling and the different shots and the way the music's used is far easier to sort of follow and want to find out what happens next. Especially with the France bikepacking vlogs, I've really enjoyed them.
thank you.
It's been really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do actually need to get a move on with the third one. I've been a bit too lazy with that.
I was going to say we haven't actually mentioned it yet. What's your channel called, and how many subscribers do you have?
It's called Cycle Nutter because well, self-explanatory. And I have, I think, 2,300 subscribers, something along those lines.
So you've just mentioned the bikepacking vlogs. So have you just been bikepacking?
Yeah, start of July, instead of, I don't know, going on the piss with my mates, I decided to go bikepacking, which was quite the challenge. 3 nights in a foreign country. All right, it's France. It's not. It's not exactly the depths of, I don't know, Vietnam or something. But yeah, so I decided with my best mate from my old school. So not actually a cycling mate. We thought it was his idea, actually, to be fair. But it was 3 days, 4 days, 480k. Booked 3 Airbnbs under my dad's name because we're under 18. And it was a bit sketchy, but no, it was all sorted, and I think we did our best to sort of present ourselves as responsible to the owners, and yeah, no, we got the job done. But there were plenty of highs, but there were a lot of really low points on the trip as well.
I think you could get away with more than most people your age, kind of trying to pretend that you're 18. I mean, you're Dutch, you're quite tall, you're quite mature. So I think if you and you speak a bit of French as well, don't you?
I do, and I'm taking French for A level. So yeah, no, languages aside from sport, my biggest passion is languages. So.
What attracts someone like you to want to go and do bikepacking with all the highs and lows that present themselves? I mean, I've been bikepacking on a couple of occasions down to Cornwall and back, so that's been a week-long affair, and 100-mile days out. And I know how challenging and stressful it can sometimes be when you're uncertain of what's going to happen.
I think it's the feeling of achievement and the feeling of adventure which really keeps you going. Like, of course, it's comfortable. It's very comfortable to have a Saturday morning after a week of work, lying in bed watching YouTube. But to get to that Saturday night or Sunday night feeling like you've done something is quite a different feeling. And being in France, like the achievements, I'd say, is getting to the accommodation and getting home, really. But not that I didn't enjoy it, and it was only purely challenge because we had such a good time. And I think the real highs is just making progress throughout the day, distance wise, and then also giving yourself the opportunity to just enjoy yourself, put some music on, have a laugh, take the piss out the French a little bit, because that's what you've got to do. And then the lows, it's at noon, being 22k into 150k day, getting home when the sun's setting, punctures, crashes. There are some hairy moments, but they're all worth it in the end. As long as you get home in one piece.
It reminds me of something that one of my old university friends said to me last year. He said something like, "Go on that trip and just ride off into the distance and see what happens. Come across stops when you find them, fill up your bottles when you need to, but the likelihood of you dying is so small that whatever uncertainty you hurl yourself into, you're probably going to come out all right. Like and you'll have a story to tell, even if it doesn't go well." This was back when I think I wanted to ride to Cardiff and back from Guildford. It was absolutely stupid. And they didn't want to create a route. They just wanted to follow signs and go not as the crow flies, but just completely wing it.
Would you not end up on a motorway if you just followed the signs?
Well, I would try not to go on the motorway. That would be highly illegal and very dangerous. I have been on dual carriageways on bikepacking trips. There's the main dual carriageway that goes past Dartmoor into Exeter, and me and a friend 2 years ago managed to get ourselves on that for like 10 miles because we couldn't be bothered to go up Dartmoor. And that was scary because it's a 70-mile-an-hour road and pretty much is a motorway. We basically
Yeah.
had my mate behind me, unbeknownst to me, basically going into the middle of the road, coming back out, going into the middle of the road, coming back out to deter lorries from passing us in our lane. And I was just
That
head
is
down. I had no idea because I was head down riding. It was slightly downhill on tailwind with bikepacking stuff, and we must have averaged like 24, 25 miles an hour for a good half an hour. And I was just like, I need to get off this road. and he's just there behind me, just trying to deter the drivers. It's
Yeah, no,
experiences like that I wouldn't be able to share if I hadn't have randomly put myself in that scenario of being 4 days into a bikepacking trip and completely spent of any energy to go to Dartmoor. It was pretty surreal.
I had a very similar moment on the fourth day. I'm not going to talk about that just yet, but quite similar to the let's get off this road, and that's all I'll say about it for now. Yeah.
Stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel. I mean, it would have been out quite a while ago by the time anyone listens to this, but yeah, check out the channel when you get the chance. What's your focus within sport? I mean, I know you said you want to do a bit of racing whilst you got the time, and you're going on bikepacking trips. Do you find that your focus is quite evenly split across them all, or are you looking to kind of hone in on one particular thing?
Yeah, I guess you could say it's evenly split at the moment, and I'm also, I'm trying to go to a gym when I have access to one. I'm running when I can and eating well, so it's sort of in the meantime, before I have the opportunity to race, before I have the opportunity to do whatever it is, I'm just trying to get as fit as possible, and then narrow down and hone into one aspect. I think if it's bike racing, if it's sort of more bodybuilding, or if it's more, actually I would say cardio, but VO2 is just the most painful thing. That doesn't bode well if I want to do racing. If I've got to embrace that. But VO2 is painful, but that's one of the things with the price to pay bill of regret thing. It's one of those which, when you do get home after smashing yourself for however long, it does feel good. And I have to say, the hardest ride I ever did was trying to steal the KOM that you didn't know you had. And that was, if I think back to one moment about being on the verge of this, I've really had enough with busting my lungs every time I ride, and I want this little yellow crown on the internet. I thought it's sort of, it's not only the little yellow crown, because that's sort of quite an, I don't know, artificial thing, but looking back, knowing that you push through and then be able to sort of rest on that. I'm saying this if it's a huge achievement, but it was probably the hardest ride I've done, and I don't know how you did that pace without even knowing, but fair enough.
I think I was doing not to boast or anything, but I think I was just doing some intervals. I literally had no idea I had the comm, and I get someone's stolen my comm. Like, who's this fella? For those of you who don't know what a comm is, it's basically that on Strava, which is where we record our cycling, it's the fastest person along that piece of tarmac or along that stretch of road. And so I think this was like 20-minute long. Was it? It was like quite a long one.
It was I think we were around 40 minutes actually.
40 minutes. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I would be going out and doing any like 40-minute time trials. You're right, it's quite brutal. But it's fun, isn't it? It provides that little like dangling like piece of money in front of you to chase. Like it's
Yeah, the rabbit and the carrot treadmill picture.
Why this sudden delve into to bodybuilding?
For me, it's not trying to, I don't know, look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's more about discipline and routine. And okay, no, I'm not gonna lie, you can end up looking pretty decent if you go to the gym and stuff. But
Absolutely.
I think the reason it's come, maybe it's, I think mates at school, people who I'm friends with, that's what they do partially, and I think a lot of my personality aligns with them. So I thought I'd just give it a go, and I think it's one of those things which really challenges you and sort of evokes discipline, and that's what I'm trying to build through, starting a few months ago. So
Why do you want to build discipline?
I think particularly in the modern age, in the modern day, people are very capable, but I think most people will never, like, really. The sad reality is that most people that won't really live up to what they could possibly do. There's this YouTuber who I started watching a few months ago called Hamza Ahmed, and it was the GCSEs coming with the wanting to get fitter, which got me to that. And it's challenging spending a lot of time working towards a intangible future goal, but it's something which is more rewarding than anything really. So
now, as we're recording this, we're about a week away, aren't we, from results? Am I correct in saying that?
6 days for me, yeah.
6 days.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm staying at the same school I am for sixth form, and the doubt isn't whether I'll get in. It's sort of I just want to know how well I did, and I put my eggs in the basket. And when I was revising, and I think for me with GCSEs, it was one of those things where I didn't need to do insanely well to continue at the same school, but it was one of those moments. Okay, one of those longer projects where it separates. Okay, I don't want to say men from the boys. It's not really an army thing, but it shows who's got the discipline, who's got the patience, and that was the challenge for me. It was just keeping disciplined, even if I thought I had a place already. So
when you don't need to do something, but it's finding a reason to do it other than the necessity. I think
yeah,
now we live in a world where a lot of those disciplined, hard tasks are not necessary because we live in so much comfort. That's when people find the challenge with challenging themselves and putting themselves in voluntary discomfort. Sitting down and revising for however many months before exams is not easy or desirable when you're 16. You just want to be out on your bike, in the gym, making content, doing whatever else you are with your mates. And it's obviously very admirable, but do you ever wish that you could kind of be like other people with regards to the people that don't revise, and just, is there anything that you regret about kind of shutting yourself away from stuff like that?
no, I don't think so, because I think doing the sort of shutting away, and it's what people sometimes refer to as like monk mode. Your monk is like fully focused on something, and I think it really attracts the right type of people, because people who understand that also do have some aspect of discipline, and they understand how important something is for you, even if they can't have the instant just going out doing something with whoever it is. And I think I have to say I'm looking forward to getting my results, because I put so much work into it, even subjects which I wasn't historically so good at. I'm looking forward to that, and then thinking, right, I've done well. I don't think it'll be a car crash, because I felt
I
fairly
doubt
confident.
that. Yeah, I doubt that you've done bad in your GCSEs.
Yeah, but just getting that, and then being able to watch a bit of cricket, thinking did a good job, and then back out for the A levels and trying to use what I've learned revising the GCSEs and all of this other self-improvement stuff to take that into A levels and the rest of my life surrounding being a sixth former. So,
Do you think it's completely fair when it comes to GCSEs? Do you think that it's purely based on how hard someone works, or do you think that some people, because of their upbringing or just because of their circumstances, that it's somehow more challenging for them?
that's a really interesting question. I have thought about that a lot. At my school, it's a fairly international school, and you often see people from other countries who haven't been brought up with English actually do quite well in subjects like English, and across the board. Even though it might not be the subject English, it's all taught in English, and they do incredibly well with that. And I think in terms of natural intelligence at GCSE, I think it's fairly low in comparison with how hard you work. If we got a subject by subject basis, let's start with English. You got poems to revise, you got books to revise. No matter how naturally smart you are, you're not going to be able to pluck quotes, pluck analysis out of thin air. Talent is involved in maths, but if you don't know how to do something, you don't know how to do something. Simple as that. Some people will step back and think about it logically more than others, but I think maybe some people don't try to. I don't know. I think it is a tricky subject.
You mentioned there that maybe some people don't try to visualize it. What do you think of people that, and not naming names obviously, because I'm sure you've got friends and you know plenty of people who don't try at all and will get potentially bad results as a result. But what do you think about someone with that kind of attitude?
I think within the modern world, it's quite understandable to why they've got there, and it's probably more common than ever. People do a lot better comparatively in primary school, because maybe there's more pressure, not pressure from parents, but more being observed. And then once you have the freedom, you can just sort of indulge.
What does it make you think when you see someone just not trying and not fulfilling their potential?
It makes me feel kind of sad on a level, like they're not reaching their potential, not reaching their maximum. And I think very few people in life will like really reach their true potential, just because comfort at the moment is such a, well, it's comfortable and it's such an available thing, particularly in the modern day. With you can literally order food from your phone as easy as that. Or I'm not saying that that's like the killer of society. Well, I do think it is. If you can easily load up YouTube and just spend hours doing nothing. You can not move and everything can still happen, but you don't have to go and hunt for your dinner. To use another Hamza quote from the YouTube I was talking about, comfort is the killer of man. And I think I do have to agree with that statement. Comfort in the moment and instant gratification just ruins people's potential.
Do you think you're lucky to come across those influences at the age that you are, or do you think it was going to happen because of the upbringing you had and your kind of personality to kind of seek that?
Yeah, so it wasn't like I was just watching your average thing on YouTube and it just popped up and I clicked on it. I was looking at something to do with fitness and bodybuilding, and then I came across that and I went deeper. But it's one thing watching the videos, but then you do actually have to put it into your life. And I think one of the problems with the self-improvement thing on YouTube is you can quite easily watch them and think, oh yeah, I'm doing a great job. But if you actually look and think, have I done anything today which is going to make me happier down the line? The answer might be no. So yeah, and I think I'm lucky that YouTubers like that exist. But then again, on the other side of the equation, I have put in quite a bit of work in some areas. So it's always a tricky one, and that's the age old question where it's sort of nature nurture your own work and all of that. But
Yeah, I mean, it's something I haven't thought of that much, but definitely, I definitely count myself fortunate to have come across people like David Goggins and Jocko Willink and Jordan Peterson, these kind of people that speak about, taking responsibility, discipline, looking
yeah,
after yourself, kind of building yourself into a man, I suppose, or any, building yourself into an adult human who's responsible and can do good in the world. I think.
I do agree with that. I have to say, if those people weren't there, like if I hadn't been watching Hamza consistently, I almost certainly wouldn't be in the position I am now, looking forward to my results. So a lot of that is down to availability of inspirational speakers.
Do you think that inspires you to make that sort of content? Maybe not specifically, but just to be able to inspire through what you're doing with making the bikepacking vlogs and whatever you might make in future.
Yeah, no, it is, and I have actually considered doing videos or maybe making my Instagram account more targeted toward that sort of thing, or maybe later in life I'd incorporate that in some way. But it's quite different, but also relevant to everyone. I also feel like I'm only a few months in and I'm still learning a lot about it. And even though it has gone well for the last few months, I really want to build up that level of consistency and be able to maybe get some people into it and really have experience in it and have some. Yeah, I think every time you do something a little bit better for your future and with a delayed gratification, there is an achievement, but some more concrete achievements before I go into that sort of thing.
That's wise from like two perspectives. Like I think the first one would be, like you say, the objective achievements that can be against your name, so that people take what you say more seriously. If I was saying what I was saying now at 15, people would say, "Well, what? Why would I trust you? Like you've had no life experience, you don't know
Yeah,
anything." It's a kind of you just poo poo the idea straight away. But also,
yeah,
it's not just kind of stamp of approval that you have, but also the wisdom you learn that you don't get on a
yeah,
piece
of
of
course.
paper. I mean, especially with me setting up this podcast now, it's something I wanted to do since I was about 18, and I fell into self development stuff when I was 18, so probably a little bit later than you. I kind of realized that I should spend some time, firstly, more understanding what I'm about, who I am, and what I want to share, and secondly, yeah, like life experience and having those things against my name. Like I've now hosted a TEDx event, and that's something that I'm super glad that I did, and is against my name now, and that gives me that little bit more trust of like, okay, this guy slightly more knows what he's doing. But of course, it's nowhere near if I was an industry professional, like I hope to be, you know, either a doctor in psychology or whatever, and then people will really trust you, and then you can actually really make an impact in people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, Jordan Peterson must be, was he 58 or something?
I think
Not
he's
sure.
60.
60. Oh yeah, that was fairly recent, wasn't it? And he's only really become popular on the internet in the last 5 years, I want to say. And I've still got 39 years until I'm 55. The time is always there, and it's just that's the beautiful thing about it. You have time to make mistakes and work out how you are. But one of the things I've been thinking about a lot recently, people say take your teenage years to make mistakes, and I think it's a good bit of advice because you want to work out what you can. And there's common sense, and there are some mistakes that you won't make in terms of, you won't walk in front of a bus and think, oh, let's see, will this kill me or not? And that's more of a what you introduce like a baby stage, and then when you're a teenager, you can make other sorts of mistakes. But I think one of the important things is you can make mistakes, but it's only punishing yourself and your future self if you just go down that same hole and make the same mistake again. And that's something I've been thinking about is making mistakes is fine because you won't be in the same knowledgeable place because making mistakes is just knowledge of not to do something.
Tom actually
Yeah.
said on the first podcast, the mistake is not learning from the mistake.
That's a good one. That's a very good one, actually.
The iterative process of going again and again and again. And I think, yeah, like you say, when you are younger, when you're making the mistakes in the teenage years, it's because the risk to reward and the level of responsibility is obviously it's at the lowest point that it's ever going to be in your life. And as you get older and you start having to pay bills, and then you start having to think about maybe having other people that are dependent on you, having your spouse and your children, the more and more you get older, obviously there's less and less things that you can do spontaneously without having to consider the ramifications, not only for yourself, but other people. So yeah, throw yourself
Yeah.
into whatever it is that kind of presents it, because it could be a complete failure. I mean, I know I've failed loads of times in my life trying to do stuff, but I'm so glad that the lessons, every single time, there's always been a lesson in whatever I've done, especially intentionally in the last 3 years, kind of looking at like improving different aspects of my character. I know that I've done stuff stupidly. I know I've done stuff that's embarrassing in public and whatever, but it's just, I'm here today and I've learned so much from it. So,
What do you think is your most embarrassing public moment which taught you a lesson which you use today?
that's a good question. It might not be my most embarrassing, but the one that immediately springs to mind, like the first thing when you said that came to my mind, was around a year ago. I got COVID-19 and I had to isolate for 10 days. And I put on my Instagram story, I said to everyone, I'm in isolation, but I feel fine. I don't think I've got any proper bad symptoms, so I'm going to run a marathon in my garden. And I was just announcing to everyone on there that I was going to do it and that I was going to stay committed and whatever. The very next day, after speaking to my parents about how stupid that would be, because my garden's not small, but it's like 20 meters in length to length.
Yeah.
So it would be impossible to measure. It would take literally all day. And I had COVID, and it did get worse in the end, actually. So I'm glad I didn't do it. But I then had to make the video the next day saying, yeah, guys, don't think it was a great idea. And I may as well put a crown, like a clown nose on, like it's made a complete fool of myself. And I think the biggest lesson I learned from that was that you get a similar dopamine response from saying you're going to do something to actually doing it, and being really
Yeah.
careful about what you claim to do in future in public, or even speaking to friends about it. I mean, even setting up this podcast, I've been careful to only keep it to a small group of people that know I'm doing it. Because I know if I start sharing it around everywhere, I'm going to feel so good about it before I've even done anything or put in any hard work.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most embarrassing moment, where the next morning I had to go, well, I got to tell everyone I'm not actually going to do it now. And it was just, I felt so stupid afterwards. But again, the lesson comes from it, and I'm a better person, hopefully, as a result.
That's a good one. And to sort of stray away from learning the lessons bit, just out of curiosity, what do you think is your most embarrassing public moment?
I mean, I've had plenty of embarrassing moments. When I first joined the gym and I didn't know what I was doing, and doing funky things with the dumbbells at like 6 a.m., going at that time because I knew there wouldn't be many people. And there's there's so many times where I really get in my own head and I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, when I was younger, actually, and this is when I was much younger, so maybe it doesn't really count, but I must have been, I don't know, 7 or 8, and we were in a
Hmm.
supermarket, and I briefly lost touch with my parents, and then when you're that height, you're kind of looking around at like arm holding level, like you obviously you're not looking up at the faces, and I just
Oh,
grabbed the hand of someone who looked like he could have been my dad, and I held on to it for ages whilst he was like shaking me off him and just saying, "I'm not with you. I'm not with you." And like the horrifying moment of looking up, seeing a random person's face, terrified, looking behind me and seeing all of my family stood at the end of the aisle, like, "What are you doing? Like, what's wrong with you?" And then just not saying anything to this bloke and just like running back to my parents, and it was so embarrassing. Like I felt awful.
yeah,
We'll kind of look to the future now and ask a few of the questions that I asked you before we started the podcast. One
yeah,
of them was, what are you most curious about? And you said the scientific reason behind human behavior. I mean, of course, that's
yeah,
something that I'm quite deeply interested in, but what attracts
yeah.
you to it?
I just think because human behavior is all around us, and even if it seems quite standard just to see what people are doing, and people do things all the time, but to actually see why they do it and why people make certain decisions,
What are you most proud of?
I think the bike packing might be up there. But I feel that there's something staring me in the face. It's not a very concrete achievement, but this year, having been open to, I think teaching myself discipline has been the most valuable thing I've done because it will allow me to do more things down the line.
Post GCSE and post A level, and like, where do you hope to? Do you hope to go to university? What does the future look like for you?
Yeah, no, I'd like to go to university. A lot of people have their life planned out for them already with their dream job, how they're gonna be a doctor, have 2 children, and die when they're 84. But for me, I've honestly got no idea because I've got such a broad range of interests, and I'd be happy to pursue any one of them really. Like I just really don't know, and I'm excited to what will happen really. So
The most common answer you'd hear to that question in terms of not knowing what you want to do would be anxiety, but it's nice to hear that you're just excited at the opportunity really, because like we've said, you know, you've got time on your side and you're interested in so many things, but now you've got that discipline down at 16, which I still think is incredible because I don't know what I was doing at 16, but not being disciplined or going to the gym. And I think the compound interest of that will really start to pay off as you get towards doing your A levels and uni and whatever, and it will be very noticeable as well. I think with when you kind of look side to side and you don't see anyone and everyone's behind you, with regards to how well you're able to do for yourself, however you define
yeah,
that.
on the looking around you thing, I was again to bring it back to Hamza because he's quite a big inspiration for me. He talks a lot about the top 20% of men and how if you're in the top 20% of men, take it with a pinch of salt. It's not 20% seems fixed, but it's quite arbitrary because people rate things
Oh,
differently depending.
it's just a it's a way to communicate the point he's getting across, roughly
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah. But it's not actually that hard to get within it because so few people have have dedication and commitment, especially younger people, I think. And if you work on that, you don't have to spend that long in the gym to notice improvements. But let's say if it's starting a business, it would take a lot of risk and things going smoothly to see some like monetary gains or some success in the industry. But gym, the only thing you give up is time. And if you're just starting out the gym,
We've mentioned your future's obviously quite bright as you're looking to pursue all your curiosities, and your skill set is spread across a lot of stuff. What's one thing dream wise that you think it would be fantastic to achieve that particular thing? Like, what's your goal in life? I mean, I know that's a very challenging question for anyone to answer themselves, but
people say quite broadly to feel happy. They want to be happy, but being happy. I want to be happy, like anyone else. Everyone wants to be happy, but I want to be happy knowing that I've achieved something. Becoming like a proper like polyglot, someone who can speak a lot of languages, has always really intrigued me, and I just love learning new languages and stuff.
amazing. Well, before we finish, have you got any questions for me?
If you could choose one person in your field in sort of psychology to maybe not be them, but maybe run a similar path to them and maybe similar achievements. At your age now, what do you want to have done, and what position would you want to be in? Like, regardless of how difficult it is or what the chances are, what is your sort of dream position to be in? It doesn't have to be psychology related, but I think that is what you want to do, if I'm not mistaken.
So I think in terms of achievement within like my career, like academically, I think to have done research in things that I find really interesting that provide genuine value for a lot of people. And so it won't come as a surprise to anyone listening to this that I'm a huge admirer of Jordan Peterson because of the way it's so deep, his search for truth. Like it's not masked with any particular agenda or ideology. He just wants to know the truth and then to share the truth in a way that means people can take quantifiable action and improve their lives. And I've definitely noticed that from listening to his advice. And I know that millions of people have also had the same reaction. And so, yeah, it's fairly obvious, but I don't know whether I want to go into clinical practice, as in therapy face to face, or go more into research. And those decisions will be made based on whether I like being an assistant psychologist when I apply, hopefully after I do my master's in a few years. It's a long journey, but I think I've found my thing now, and I just want to pursue it and see what happens. But yeah, there's no guarantees, but I think as you would kind of appreciate yourself, kind of with you doing the content and working hard for GCSEs, and for me working hard at uni, taking opportunities like doing TEDx and starting my own podcast, it's like if I just keep doing these things, then I'm going to build a network and build my expertise and my experience, and wherever that takes me is I have more opportunities to find something that I can be really good at. So I think that's
Cool.
that's it.
And just to come back on what you said about Jordan Peterson, I have to agree with that, and I think he bases what he says on facts, and whether people like them or not is another thing. The stuff he says, it's all factually based. I think a lot of people just get a bit emotional and don't actually think, oh yeah, what if that is true, and broaden their mind to that. So
I think people would rather kind of bury their head in the sand and not take responsibilities for the poor choices they've made or things that are their fault that they don't want to admit to, so they don't want to hear it. There's power in admitting it's your fault because it means you also have the chance to make it better, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And if you can admit you're wrong, or if you can admit you've done something wrong, then I mean you're going in the right direction because at least you know what's right, and even if it takes a bit of a kick up the arse to do it, then go in the right direction. So yeah.
Well, a great message to finish the podcast with. If anyone watching or listening, I kind of forget people are watching, if any of them are on the YouTube channel. So
Yeah.
away from me. You'll notice halfway through I changed headphones because mine died, but not to worry. You were patient enough to let me go and get some, and thank you very much for coming onto the podcast. It's been fantastic to hear your insights.
Yeah, no, it's been absolutely great talking to someone who's quite like-minded about a lot of the principles behind this stuff, even if we're not in the same field now. It's been great. So thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.